Hello, I am Hyunwoo Kim, and here I would like to deal with the question, what impacts did the COVID-19 pandemic make to the exchange rate between dollar and won? For your information, won is the currency of South Korea. I think to find a good answer to the question can be quite meaningful, since the exchange rate between dollar and won makes huge impact on South Korean economy. Also, the question is related to our class since we have handled some contents like a trade and an exchange rate and so on. I can say that the COVID-19 pandemic played a role to make the exchange rate of US dollar per won very high. Through these two graphs, you can check that the exchange rate has been uprising. If you see the left one, you can notice that the exchange rate of US dollar per won kept going up from the start of January to the last of February. And if you see the right one, you can notice that the exchange rate of 2020 is pretty much higher than that of 2015 and 2018. Then why the pandemic made the exchange rate of US dollar per won high? The Bank of Korea lowered interest rates as the coronavirus spread. This is the first reason the $1 exchange rate has risen. If the one's interest rate falls, the one's value is lower than in the past as the amount of interest one can receive on its holdings decreases. This will lead to a rise in the exchange rate. The growing number of COVID cases in Europe also ultimately leads to a rise in the dollar per one exchange rate. This is because the value of euro decreases when euro's entire economy worsens, while at the same time the value of dollar increases relatively. This is the second reason the exchange rate has risen. And let me introduce the third reason. The continued pandemic of the coronavirus has led to a continued decline in the number of tourists entering Korea, leading to a slump in the domestic economy. The currency value of a country with a poor economy usually falls, and as mentioned above, a bad economy increases the likelihood of lower interest rates, which leads to a fall in the value of money. There is a slim chance that stock prices in countries suffering from this bad situation will rise. Foreign investors have been reluctant to invest in Korea, and investor losses made higher US dollar per one exchange rate. However, still there are some limitations to my ability to answer the question. That is, I'm not aware of all the variables that might have made some impacts to US dollar per one exchange rate. I just assume the COVID pandemic is the main reason for it, since it is the biggest world issue ever these days. So, if there are several other variables that have made much bigger impacts to the exchange rate than the pandemic, my answer might be incorrect. And this is because if there are few more social variables, the situation goes more complicated, and we have to figure out the reason for the exchange rate increasing more accurately again. But still, I'm confident in my answer. It is virtually self evident that the pandemic is a big event that we have not predicted. In this situation, it is also natural that economic indicators are also affected. Lastly, here are the sources I've used. And thank you for listening.